All right, I think we're ready to get started. Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming to our Bungalow Attic presentation tonight. It's our dormer edition. I am Carla Bruni. I'm the Preservation and Resiliency Specialist at the Chicago Bungalow Association. Our speaker tonight, Laura Garcia, is going to talk for about 40 minutes. And then we're going to have questions after that. We have a hard stop at 7 p.m. tonight. So we're going to get through as many of the questions as we can. Please keep in mind this is going to be recorded. So if you miss things, don't worry too much about it. You won't hear me now if you do miss things and jump on later. Saying this right now and explaining it, but you know, don't worry too much if you didn't catch things in the very beginning. And I'll repeat that at the end tonight as well. Our chat is disabled, so you can see down in the Q&A section at the bottom here, there's already a comment in there that's just from Angela, letting you, kind of waving to you to let you know where you can put questions in as we go. Again, we'll get to as many of them as we can. And Laura said it's okay too if you reach out to her afterwards with specific questions about things if we don't have a chance to get to them tonight, or if they're specifically about your home. Versus sort of more general questions for the group tonight. So don't worry about that either. I think that's all we really have to do for the briefing here. Again, this is recorded. You can find it on Facebook Live. We'll also have it on our website after this. So it'll live in those places permanently, so you can access it as many times as you'd like. And I think I will just get into Laura's bio then. Laura Garcia is a licensed architect who has lived and worked in Chicago since 1995. She has a broad range of experience in many project types and scales, from commercial high rises to small residential interior remodels. She founded her architecture and consulting firm, Laura Garcia Design, in 2010 and provides a full range of architectural services for the design, permitting, and construction of new buildings, additions, and renovations. Her firm focuses on residential and small commercial projects, primarily in the Chicagoland area and surrounding Midwestern states. Laura is active in her professional community and has served on the AIA Chicago Board of Directors since 2016 as a director, secretary, and currently is vice president of advocacy. She's been an active member of the AIA DOB working group since 2015, which meets monthly with the Chicago Department of Buildings, and she co-chaired the Department of Buildings Small Residential Code Modernization Group in 2018. She's been active in AIA Chicago's Small Practitioners Group since 2010 and has served as co-chair of the Small Practitioners Group from 2015 to 2020. She also gives presentations to the public through the Small Practitioner Group's Working with an Architect program and regularly speaks at professional and industry events. She's actually done some of those with us through Bungalow as well. Laura is an enthusiastic problem solver who enjoys unique challenges and unusual project constraints. Her approach is framed around carefully listening to her clients' goals, desires, and concerns so that she can guide them to successful project completion. So I think we can go ahead and get started hearing about these Bungalow Attic dormer additions. Yeah, you want to take it, Laura?
Great, thank you so much, Carla, for the introduction. I appreciate it. I'm really excited to be here tonight talking to everyone about this project. And I want to start by thanking the homeowners, Jeremy and Rebecca Hellier, and also the Chicago Bungalow Association for this opportunity to talk to all of you tonight. So with that said, let me see, I need to share my screen. Okay, hopefully everyone can see my screen.
We can see it. It's not fully enlarged is all. We see your spreadsheet.
Oh, hold on a second. Let's try this. Not better?
Yes, that's it.
Okay.
Okay.
A little technical snafu to start. Okay. So let's begin. So as just a general overview of what I'll be talking about tonight, I'm going to introduce the project and talk about the homeowners' goals, why they decided they wanted to modify their bungalow. We'll do a quick review of the design process, how we work through different options for how to accomplish the homeowner's goal, and then land on the final version that's the best version for the project. After that, I'm going to review some common issues that we often encounter when we are working on bungalow attic additions. I've worked on quite a few bungalows, and there are some general themes, things that come up in every project. So we'll talk through some of those today. And then at the end, as Carla already noted, there'll be some time for question and answer. Over here on the right side of the screen, and hopefully you can all see my little hand that's moving around here. I'm going to be using it a little bit during the presentation. Up on the upper right is a view of the back of the house before we began, so what it was, and then down here in the lower right is the final addition, what the project looked like when it was done. So jumping right into plans, the first step in any process when you're working with an architect is the architect will want to review the existing conditions of the house as it was before you start the project. And that includes going in, measuring the house and drawing the plans as they existed in the moment. So these two plans on the screen are plans of their house before we started the addition. So we have here on the left, the ground floor of the bungalow, and on the right, the attic as it was. So just to orient you a little bit, at the bottom of the screen is the street. At the top of the screen is the backyard. And so you'll see that we have a pretty typical bungalow layout here on the ground floor. You come in off the front porch into the main living areas, 2 bedrooms off to the side, and the kitchen in the back, the stair in the middle up here into the existing attic. Now we're up on the attic. Anything that's gray in this attic plan is shaded gray because it's under the low slope of the roof, so it's not usable. So we have the main attic space, the stair coming up, and an existing dormer in the back and an existing dormer in the front of the house. So the homeowners, they're a young couple with 1 child. They, the homeowners live in 1 bedroom, the son in the other. They shared a bathroom. So their primary goal was to add a master suite to the house. They really wanted a master suite up in the attic level. And I'll talk about this a little more in a minute, but for this project, that meant looking at how we might be able to raise the ceiling height in that attic, because in their case, it was low. They also wanted some sort of area outside of the master suite on the 2nd floor to, for an office or a study or a little bit of common space outside of the master suite. And then on their wish list, they also wanted to locate laundry up on the 2nd floor. So the homeowner and I were aligned in that we were both very interested in maintaining the original character of the house. So I'm a big believer in the Chicago Bungalow Association's design guidelines, which you can find on their website. And so our goal was to accomplish all of this and minimize the impact of this addition from the street view and work within the style of the existing bungalow. So match the style of the current roof and the eaves, the overhangs, the windows, and exterior details. So here we have a view of the attic as it was before we started the project. Now you can see, first of all, that the ceiling, the existing ceiling, was quite low. So from the floor to this flat part of the ceiling up here was only 7 feet, just a hair over 7 feet. And then obviously the ceiling sloped down on either side, following the line of the roof. And once you get to the sides of the house, there's really not usable space. It's, very low ceiling height. So part of this project was looking at ways to increase the ceiling height to make this habitable space. Now, on some projects, we're starting with a ceiling height that's a little bit higher, and it's possible to look at ways to just simply dormer or raise the slope of the roof to gain height on the sides of the house so that you can make it usable without raising the ridge, the highest point of the roof, raising that ridge higher than the existing roof. But in this house, I knew from the start that we wouldn't really be able to do that because their existing height was so low. So we knew that this project would include raising at least a portion of the existing roof higher to have enough height to create this addition. Another thing I wanted to point out is that in this picture back here on the right side of the plan, the homeowners had previously installed a space pack and air conditioning system. Space pack is a high velocity mini duct air conditioning system that's commonly installed in existing houses. The ducts are small, so it's easy to sneak them in and around existing conditions and structure in the house. And so their equipment for this system is in this room here at the back of the existing attic. And we really didn't want to move that because then there would be a lot of work involved with rerouting all of the existing ducts to hit wherever the new location is for that equipment. So part of our design goal was to work around this room, keep this room where it was. And then finally, sometimes as we're designing these projects, we want to, for one reason or another, move the stair, relocate the stair up to the attic to a different part of the house. But we set early on as a goal to leave the stair where it is and work around it just to try and constrain construction cost. So now I want to talk a little bit about the design process, which for me is a collaborative process with the homeowners. So after we talk about the goals, what they want to add to the attic, I come up with some options for how to accomplish this. In their case, we're looking at options in plan and exterior views of the house and elevation because it involves raising a portion of the roof. So these are two early options that we looked at and ultimately rejected. We didn't move forward with either one of these, but I want to talk about them briefly just to give you some insight into the design process. So in this option here, well, first of all, to start, both of these additions and this option, this area is the addition, and then in this option, all the way to the back of the house is the addition. Both of these additions are pulled back 20 feet minimum from the front of the house. This is really important because it minimizes the view of the addition from the street. So when you pull the addition way back, you can't see it from the street, and it helps to maintain the original character of the bungalow. So all of the options show the addition oriented at the back of the house. And then from there, all of the options show a bedroom that overlooks the backyard to utilize those views, and a bathroom that's located over the existing bathroom on the ground floor. And that's so that we have plumbing close to plumbing that's already in the house, and it's easier to pull that plumbing up to the second floor to the attic. And then that leaves the walk-in closet in both of these options and this study space, which is when you come up the stairs, you land in the study. It's an open space. It could be a TV room. It could be an office or a study. It could be an additional space for guests. So the red line in these plans, in these design options, indicates where the new roof ridge is over the addition. So in this option, the roof is lifted and then rotated 90 degrees. So the new ridge is perpendicular to the previous ridge of the roof. And it keeps the existing dormer. So this rear wall of the addition is pulled back from the back wall of the house to try and minimize the impact and the bulk of the addition from the backyard. In this addition, the roof is pulled up over the addition, and the new ridge is parallel to the existing ridge. And I'll show you what these look like from the exterior in my next slide. So now these are exterior views of the house. We call them elevations. Down here at the bottom, these are the existing elevations, meaning the views of the house as it was before any addition is added. And then we have option 1, which I was just talking about on the last screen, and option 2, what they would look like from the outside. So up here in option 1, we have the front of the house, And remember that the addition is way back 20 feet. So if you're actually standing on the ground here, looking up at the house, you really wouldn't see it. But the way we draw it, it looks a little bit different. Just wanted to clarify that. But this is the front, this is the back of the house. And then this is a piece of the side of the house, the rear of the house, so that you can see what it looks like from the side. So you can see in both of these options that the addition is really quite bulky and looks quite tall and blocky. Like in this addition where the roof is rotated 90 degrees, you know, it really adds a lot of height to the side of the house in particular. And it's very blocky. And likewise, in this addition, the rear wall of the house here, this is just a massively tall wall. And then we have a long roof line here that really makes both of these options look pretty bulky and overwhelm the existing house, despite the fact that the addition is pulled back from the street. So we rejected both of these options as being too bulky and overwhelming the existing house. And I resolved to look at options, ways to reduce the bulk of the addition and possibly break up these long, straight roof lines. So now here we are looking at the plans that we landed on, the final plans for this project. So as you can see, looking at the attic plan, it looks pretty much the same as in some of the earlier options. We have the master bath with a full walk-in large shower, a double vanity, a separate toilet room, and a linen closet. We have a master bedroom here overlooking the backyard, a large walk-in closet, and a large study area with the stair wall being a partial height wall so you can stand and look over the edge down the stair to the ground floor. And then this front area of the house, the first 20 plus feet of the house, remains unchanged. But then the change here is the roof plan. So now, instead of it being a gable roof is a roof that slopes in two directions. It's now a hip roof like the existing house's roof. So a hip roof is a roof that slopes in four directions. So it slopes down in all four cardinal directions. So now we have a top of the roof. The high point of the roof is actually minimized, and you'll see this in a second in elevation. And then in addition to changing it to a hip roof, we added 3 secondary dormers at key locations in the plan to add additional height so that we could reduce the overall height of the addition. So looking at that in exterior views, elevations, again, this is the existing house for reference, what it looked like before the addition. And now these are the elevations of the new house so that you can see now that in all four directions that you're looking at this addition, the roof slopes down. So that really helps to minimize the bulk of the addition. And then you can see these secondary dormers. Here's one at the back of the house off of the master bedroom. There's another secondary dormer here at the master bath at the side of the house. And there's the third secondary dormer here at the study. So these secondary dormers serve to give us a little bit of additional height, like I said before, at key locations in the plan. And they also serve to break up this long roof line and minimize both the bulk of the addition and add some character to the roof lines. And then to talk a little bit more about this addition, we have a section view. A section, if you can imagine slicing a building vertically right down the center, and then opening it up and looking at it like a dollhouse, that's a building section. So that's what we're looking at here is a vertical section through the house. So you see the stairs going up to the attic. This is the attic level. These dashed lines are the lines of the old attic roof or the roof beyond this addition that's remaining that we're not altering. And then this is the plane of the new roof cut through 2 of the secondary dormers. So you can see that the amount that the new roof is raised over the addition is about 3 foot 3 inches. It's really not a whole lot. Just over the addition, we're raising the roof a little over 3 feet. And by doing that, we end up with a full 10 feet, 6 inches of clear height up to the high point of the ceiling. And then the ceiling slopes down following the roof joists until we get to the secondary dormers, which give us 8 feet, 9 inches, just a little under 9 feet of height to the high point of the secondary dormers. And then where the roof hits the new wall, where there are no dormers, we have 6 feet of height. So the story here is that, 6 feet of height wouldn't be enough for the full addition, but we're able to lower the sides or only raise them up to 6 feet because we have these secondary dormers, and we've lifted the whole roof up. I hope that makes sense. We also added some skylights at key locations in the plan to help bring more natural light into the addition. So now we have some views of the finished addition. Over here on the right, I've keyed the views, so you can imagine standing where the number is and looking in the direction of the arrow. That's the view pictured in the image. So here we're looking at the study. We're standing over here towards the top of the stair, looking back. We can see the roof lines of the secondary dormer here, and the window in that secondary dormer for the study. And down here we have a view of the master bedroom, standing kind of by the closet, looking back towards the bathroom across the master bedroom. Again, you can see the lines of the ceiling that really add interest and life to the addition, and the new windows that are overlooking the backyard. Here we have some views of the new master bath. So we're looking in down here at this lower image. We have a double vanity on the left. We have a large walk-in shower on the right, a separate toilet room here at the back right, and then at the back left, we're able to incorporate a linen closet. And then here on the left is a view of the shower that is strategically located under one of those secondary dormers. So we get the cool pitched ceiling at the shower. And then the laundry we located in the part of the attic whose roof we did not modify. So the laundry room is not really, it's not space that theoretically, you're not gonna spend a whole lot of time in. So this seemed like the perfect place to put the laundry. It's, it's a really nice sized laundry room. It doesn't need all of the ceiling height of the rest of the addition. So it worked really well to locate the washer and dryer here. And then again, just to reference one of my earlier slides, we were able to maintain this room that existed before for the homeowner's existing air conditioning system so that we didn't have to move that for this project. Okay, now I want to take a minute and talk about sustainability, green technology, energy efficiency. As some background information, buildings account for 40% of all of our energy use in this country, which is really an astoundingly large percentage when you think about all of the energy we use for so many different things. So the building industry is working on reducing our collective dependence on fossil fuels and mitigating climate change by incorporating green technologies into buildings. So we're doing that in a few different ways by using on-site renewable power sources. So that would be like solar panels on the roof or wind turbines. Passive design techniques like looking at how we're orienting buildings on a project site relative to the sun, passive ventilation techniques, and also incorporating energy efficient fixtures and equipment. So I want to say that we're really fortunate to live in a city where we have a lot of architects out there, a lot of people and resources that are subject matter experts on this topic. And I wouldn't call, there's people much smarter than me. I wouldn't call myself a subject matter expert. But that said, I think it's really important that this conversation not only happen with the experts, but with all of us. There's things that all of us can do, all architects can do, and all homeowners can do, that small changes and small things that we can do to really be forward thinking and thinking about the future of our planet and the future of our natural resources. So in the case of this house, I have to give the homeowners full props. They were proactive, they took the initiative, and they incorporated several green technologies into their project that I want to talk about really quickly. One, they opted for spray foam insulation instead of batt insulation in the walls and ceilings of the addition. We could have made the project work either way to meet energy code, but spray foam insulation is really the superior product, the way to go. It gives you a higher R value or insulation value per inch than batt insulation typically. And it also gives you an airtight seal that really minimizes air infiltration. They also opted to select tankless electric hot water heaters and energy efficient appliances for their project. And after construction, really excited to report that they've added solar panels to their roof. So I think the takeaway here is if you're interested and want to design a net zero or carbon neutral or house, I think that that's wonderful and fantastic. But what I want everyone to think about and consider is that small moves are also okay. It doesn't have to be all or nothing, do it all or go home and don't bother. You can be making small incremental changes over time. And I consider and encourage you to talk to your architects and think about this, as equipment ages in your house, or if your hot water heater blows, and consider buying an electric tankless hot water heater. The future will be electric, meaning that in the future, our buildings and homes will be powered by either on-site renewable energy resources, like again, solar panels or wind turbines, or they'll be powered from our electric grid, which will also be fueled by renewable resources. So I just want to put that out there, keep it in mind. If we all start making small moves together, we can make a big difference. Okay, now let me see, time check, 6:30, we're doing pretty well, good. I want to address some typical issues that we often see when we are remodeling or adding onto bungalow attics. Excuse me. And the first one is that existing attic floor joists are often structurally inadequate. So what that means is that these bungalows, when they were originally built, the attics they were designed as just raw space. They weren't built with the intention of eventually becoming finished or habitable. So the structural joists, the floor joists of the attic are typically undersized. They don't have the load capacity that they need to have to support fully habitable space that people and furniture are in. And so the vast majority of the time, we have to look at ways to shore up or increase the structural load capacity of the floor joists. So one of the most common ways, and there are many ways to do this, I'm just going to talk about a couple here today, but one way to do this is to sister existing joists with new joists. Now, sister means, and this is an image of it here, to install a new joist right exactly next to the existing joist. And this increases the structural load capacity of the floor. So this system works really well, I have found, when you're working on projects that are gut rehabs from the ground up, where you're taking off all the interior finishes, walls, ceilings, floors, everything, and you're just down to the raw studs, because you can really see what's going on. You can get in there. A lot of times you're replacing existing electrical or HVAC ducts, things that might be in that ceiling. You're removing them and replacing them. And so it's pretty easy to get in and feasible to get in and sister joists in next to the existing joists. However, in this case, these homeowners, they weren't working on the ground floor. Their ground floor was fine. They didn't really want to do any work on the ground floor. They only wanted to focus on the attic addition. And so because of that, there are things like recessed lights in the ceiling and space pack air conditioning mini ducts in the ceiling, in that space between the ground floor ceiling and the attic floor, that you would have to work around to be able to sister joists in, which is not as feasible. It's much more difficult to do. And so during construction, the contractor suggested that in lieu of trying to sister the joists, that we build a new system right on top of the old system. So a new set of structural joists right on top of the existing joists, the existing floor. This might seem like overkill, but in actuality for this type of project, it is much more feasible. It was the right way to do it from a construction standpoint. And so that's how we proceeded. The contractor went ahead and built a new joist system on top of the existing joist system so that we wouldn't have to mess around with everything that was in that existing ceiling. So the downstream effects of that are that, one, we had to add an additional step to the top of the stair going up to the attic. Obviously, you have to take that one additional step up. And then we also had to increase the overall height of the addition also by that one step to maintain the attic ceiling heights that we wanted to hit from, referring back to the design phase. But we're still well within the allowable building height, and we're still less than 4 feet total from the high point of the addition to the high point of the existing roof. So ultimately, it was the right decision in this case to go ahead and build a new joist on top of the old instead of sistering. Okay, next common issue that we often see, zoning setback requirements. So the zoning ordinance is a separate standalone ordinance, separate from the building code, that has a whole series of requirements that projects need to comply with. And to just back up for a minute, we live in a city where we have a lot of buildings that were built before the current zoning ordinance was enacted. And so what this means is that we have tons of buildings that don't actually comply with current zoning requirements. And that's okay. If your current house doesn't comply with zoning requirements for the property, it's okay. You don't have to do anything. That's called existing non-conforming, and your house can stay just as it is without an issue. However, as soon as you build any new square footage, any new habitable area, whether it's in the form of an attic addition or a rear addition, whatever form that might take, the new area needs to comply with zoning requirements. And so we end up with conditions like what is highlighted here, what I highlighted here on this drawing. So in this homeowner's case, and I want to emphasize that this can vary from house to house on the same block. It's really zoning requirements and setback requirements. A setback refers to the distance between the property line and the exterior face of the house. Setback requirements and zoning requirements in general are site specific and zone specific, and you really need to have your house looked at by an architect and the survey analyzed by an architect, someone knowledgeable with zoning, to determine how this might impact you and your house. But in this case, this wall was too close to the property line per current zoning standards, and this wall was fine. So on this side, you can see that we just extended the wall of the addition straight up in line with the wall below. On this side, the existing wall is okay, meaning it didn't need to move, but it wasn't actually compliant. It should be in this plane where this wall is. And so there's a couple of ways you can handle this. There are allowances for you to apply for zoning relief if you'd like to extend this wall straight up, meaning the new wall is not compliant with the setback. However, that requires applying for zoning relief. And so you have to build additional time into your project time. It takes time to get zoning relief. And also keep in mind that it's not a guarantee that your request for relief will be approved. So you should also build in the possibility of having to change the design if you want to go that route. Alternatively, you can set the addition wall back so that the addition wall is compliant even though the existing wall below it isn't. And that's the way we handled this project. You end up with a condition where you have to cap the top of the existing wall, but it's a condition that's really not visible from any angle, from the back, front, or from inside the addition. And so we call designing the new addition to comply with zoning requirements, designing it to be as of right, meaning you can go and get the project permitted without any special zoning approvals. So that's what we did in this case for this project. And then the last issue that we often see with these bungalow attic additions is the existing stair up to the attic is often not code compliant. Either it's not wide enough. Code requires that residential stairs be at least 3 feet wide. So it's either not wide enough, or the rise and run of the stair, it's too steep. So both of those conditions we see, and in this project, I'm addressing specifically the issue of the existing stair not being wide enough. Now, if it's like 2 feet 11 3/4 inch or something like that, you know, it's fine. We probably wouldn't mess with it. But in this case, we were a good 5 inches off, enough that we really needed to modify that stair to be wide enough to be code compliant. So in this project, this is the existing plan here on the left, and then this is the new final plan for the ground floor on the right. So we took this wall and we moved it into the kitchen 5 inches, 5 inches, and reframed the stair. And because we were reframing the stair, we also had the opportunity to change the bottom. Over here in the existing plan, we see, you know, the stair kind of turns to the right as you're coming down the stair. So we eliminated those bottom winders, they're called, these pie-shaped steps, and just did a straight run, straight up and down. Now, in this project, fortunately, because of the location of the stair, it was pretty easy to make it wider. But I point this out because, as many of you I'm sure know, many bungalows have U-shaped stairs on one side or the other of the floor plate, where the top leg of the stair angles up underneath the roof slope above. And it can be a little bit more challenging to make those wider, especially if there's spaces on either side that you don't want to infringe upon, but it is possible. I bring it to your attention because it's pretty common to have to deal with this issue, and it's resolvable through design, during the design process. So here are some final images of this project. Again, it was just a joy to work with these homeowners. They did such a great job of being proactive and managing their project. I also want to give a thanks and a shout out to the general contractor, Redstone Builders, who did a fantastic job on this project. Up here we have a finished view of the house from the street. And you can see over here on the edge, you can see the dormer popping up just a little bit, but for the most part, the addition is not visible from the street. This is a view of the side looking up at the secondary dormer that's at the master bathroom. And then we have, again, a view, which you've seen before, of the back of the house. We have the master bedroom, the office, the closet, master closet, and then a couple of images of the master bath. So again, thank you, Chicago Bungalow Association, for this opportunity to talk tonight. If any of you have questions, feel free to reach out. I'd be happy to answer anything that I can. And I think with that, if there's any questions, we can start trying to answer them.
Yeah, thank you so much, Laura. That was amazing and really clear. Sometimes sort of getting walked through things, it can be a little difficult to sort of understand. And I thought you did a really awesome job visually and just explaining things. Also, I just want to point out, like, this is why, we're so lucky to have architects like Laura who we work with and who come and do these talks, because it really helps explain, you do such a good job explaining, like, how much needs to be navigated in terms of zoning and code, and if you want to do environmental upgrades, and obviously to do things that are in a visually sensitive way, and why. So this is the difference of using an architect, I think, oftentimes and not, and using a good architect, I should say. Okay, let us get into the questions though. We have until 7 to go through these. I'm going to start. So one person had asked, can you estimate the cost of the attic remodeling, the architecture and construction costs? And I imagine that is a very difficult thing to do. So however you want to respond to that.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I kind of expected that we might get that question tonight. How much does all of this cost? So I can share I asked the homeowners if they would be okay with me sharing construction cost information before this. So I can share that this addition cost, including construction and interior finishes and fixtures, just under 200,000, about 195,000. And then architect fees, you know, I need to be a little bit careful here because I can't be seen to be price fixing for the industry, but I can say that generally you can expect to pay anywhere from 5 to 15 or more % of the construction costs. Not all architects charge their fees based on construction costs. I don't. I use it kind of as a guide to back check my fees. But that you see that big fee range because it's really dependent on what level of services you need. So, and to give you an example, these homeowners, they selected their own interior finishes. So they went and selected their own tile for the bathroom and their own vanity and their own wood floor, for example. So they didn't need me to help them with that. Some homeowners do want help with that. And then also different homeowners have different levels of comfort with the construction process. So the degree to which you might want your architect involved during construction can vary from homeowner to homeowner. So there's a lot of individual pieces of information that go into determining architect fees, but 5 to 15% I think is a pretty good range.
Okay, thanks. Sorry, we're getting a lot of these questions are moving around on me here. What was the overall time to complete the project?
The construction, so they retained me in the late fall, towards the end of the year of 2018. And we got through the design process and the permitting process by the spring of 2019. And so we started the design work and the permitting process pre-pandemic, just to give you some reference. And so because construction and especially residential construction is an essential service, they were able to move forward with construction despite us being in the middle of a pandemic. So their construction started in May and they were finished around the end of August or beginning of September. So I would put a 4 to 6 month timeline on the construction of this kind of project.
Okay. I also want to point out that one of your clients, Jeremy Hellier, is responding to some questions in the Q&A, and I wanted to say thank you.
Oh, good. Thanks, Jeremy.
It's pretty great. Some of them are about staircases. I know there's a few questions in here about staircases, so if you could also just address them, Laura. Just one of them was, they have a hatch, but not an actual staircase. Like, what do you do in that case? Others are just, just sort of how, and I know, again, it's hard unless you're in the space and it's case specific, but how do you sort of approach issues around stairs, especially if they've never existed?
Well, if there's just a hatch that you pull down and a ladder drops down and that's how you get up to your attic, I mean, that's not sufficient for an addition like this. So we'd have to design in a new stair. So that would include figuring out where in the ground floor plan we can fit a new stair, and then redoing the structure of the attic floor to create the opening for the new stair to go up. So there's a few different things to work through, but you would definitely need to add a new stair and find the space on the ground floor for that stair in order to do an addition like this.
Is there a way to reuse some of the existing roof if it was recently built while adding dormers and or raising the roof?
Oh, that's such a specific question. That's really on a case-by-case basis. So that one's a hard one to answer. I mean, in an ideal world, yes, we would reuse any materials that could be reused across the project. That's good for cost. It's also good for sustainability to be able to reuse materials. But I mean, likely you're going to end up putting, I would think, a new roof on. Well, in the case of this addition, the new roof that was popped up, or the portion of the addition that's new and high, that had a new roof to match the existing roof. It's a little bit tough, I think, from my experience, to reuse existing roofs, but I wouldn't say it's impossible. It would be on a case by case basis.
In terms of zoning relief, does that remain as approved for the additional wall when or if the owners want to sell the home?
So if you get zoning approval and you get a building permit for the project and you build the project, then yes, you're good and it's done. When a new homeowner, if you sell the house, then the new homeowner doesn't have to do anything. There's a permit on record showing that what was built was permitted, so nothing else needs to be done. I think that answers the question.
Yeah, I think so. Okay. Sorry, the questions jump around. Just missed that. Do you need to add a booster pump for water pressure to the second floor?
That, again, is on a case by case basis. It depends on how many plumbing fixtures you have in the building already and how many plumbing fixtures you're adding and what the size of your existing water service is. So there could be any combination of things that might need to be done. If you're adding a lot of plumbing fixtures, you might need to upgrade your existing water service from the street and or add a booster pump. It really depends on, again, how many fixtures were there before the project and how many you're adding.
Okay. We had some questions about skylights too, and Jeremy also was kind enough to pipe in about what you did with theirs. But in general, I know skylights are, see, they did a really sort of fabulous solar-powered venting skylights. So if anybody watching wants to look in the comments too, there's some good, interesting information in there that's specific. But also, in general, can you just sort of speak to the cost on those, and also, what to be careful about when adding skylights, because I know they're a pretty vulnerable sort of component if they're not done right.
Skylights are fantastic. I love them. They just do such a great job of bringing natural light into the space. Let's see, some flags. I mean, the skylight has to be properly flashed when it's installed to make sure that you have a watertight installation. But they're not particularly uncommon, skylights, and I don't see people having a whole lot of problems, in particular with new skylight installations, especially when you're installing the skylight while you're installing the whole roof. I'm not sure what else to say about that. That's not entirely specific to a specific.
Yeah, I know. Are they in general, would you say, if somebody was just going to add them, say, to an existing thing and it wasn't a larger project, are they typically, is it typically really expensive to add them as compared to a normal window somebody had asked? Like a typical double hung sash kind of a thing?
I mean, I think to install a skylight properly, you really need to also get a roofing contractor involved, again, because you want to make sure that you're coordinating the skylight installation with the roofing, and you don't need to do that when you're putting a window in. So, I mean, there are varying levels of skylight quality, just like there are with windows, everything from, vinyl to solid wood windows. You've got the same level of different levels of quality in skylights. So if you pick a high quality skylight and you work with a licensed contractor that's installed skylights before, you'll probably be fine.
Okay. Sorry. Okay. Somebody on here, I can maybe take this really quick. If somebody had a bungalow, there was an attic, but it was destroyed. by a tornado or something. And so they, in terms of recreating an original attic, we used to have plans through the Bungalow Association on how to do that. We had some sets of plans years ago. We don't really have those anymore, but a lot of it is just, I mean, the beauty of a bungalow neighborhood is that you have all of these neighbors who have those attics, you know what I mean, as well. So kind of the best thing to do is like not, be friends with the neighbor and get in there, especially if they have a house that's like really like yours, and just get in there and look and see what they did. That's always the best way to do it. And again, all of these were built unfinished originally. So it's not like you would find some original plan where it's going to have all this stuff laid out. All of them were like that. So, yeah, I would recommend going to your neighbor's house if possible.
Yeah, I think that's great advice, especially a neighbor's house that doesn't have a finished attic, so you can see how the roof is framed. That's
Right,
great advice.
right. Is it possible to modify/extend existing dormers with a roof replacement permit?
Modify or extend existing dormers. I mean, I think that question is asking, can I make the existing dormer bigger?
I would guess, yeah.
Just a roof remodeling permit. And I think that technically the answer is no. I mean, if you're modifying the dormer such that you're adding more livable space to the attic, then that scope of work would fall under the category of requiring a building permit from the city. If you're remodeling the roof and the face of it, but you're not overly altering the shape of it, then you can probably do that under a roof replacement.
Okay. If you want to be able to use the attic for a room, just for a walk-in closet or a den without a permit, is that possible? 'Cause I know you talked about load-bearing, issues and stuff, but I think they just mean is kind of like a hangout space.
Yeah, I mean that's
don't knock on your
that's
door.
a little bit of a tough one to answer. I mean, obviously, the architects nor the city are like policing how people are using their attics. So that's a little bit of a tough question to answer. As a licensed professional, I have to advise that, if you're planning on using that space as what we call habitable space, like hangout space, even if you're really not finishing it, I have to caution or advise you that it might be a good idea to have at least the floor checked out and see if there's anything that you can do or should do to reinforce it structurally. But ultimately it's your house and you're the homeowner, and you live in your house and you live in your house at your own risk, for lack of a better way to say that. I hope that helps answer that question.
Mm-hmm. Due diligence, yes. Was any thought given to a secondary egress method from the attic in the event of a fire if the staircase were unavailable? I don't know what the deal is with that either.
Well, I can say that the building code doesn't require a second means of egress for this project. So this is a single family home. There aren't any additional dwelling units. It's one dwelling unit. And so for one dwelling unit of this size and this floor plate, a second means of egress isn't required. Now, that doesn't mean that you as a homeowner, you may want to add another stair for whatever reason. And that's okay. You can do that. The code doesn't stop you from doing it. It just doesn't require it. So if I were working with a homeowner that wanted to add a second stair or means out, then we would look at design options for how to accomplish that. And I think that it would likely be from the back of the house down into the backyard someplace.
I can sort of take part of this because I sort of just responded to it anyway, but is it possible to use existing architectural plans for my attic rehab? And then they ask if Chicago Bungalow Association has plans from prior projects that could be a low cost option. Again, we do not have plans like that. I would assume that an architect would always have to come and really measure because there are all of these like tiny variations. Things were not that standard in a lot of ways. If you look at the old building permits, do you have anything to add to that, Laura?
No, but I agree. I mean, it seems like because this is a standard building type that there should be a standard way to handle this kind of stuff, but unfortunately there really isn't, because how your house is sited on your property within your property lines varies from house to house to house to house to house, which impacts what you can and can't do. Um, and then the existing conditions of the houses vary from house to house to house. So there isn't really a one size fits all way to handle this. You really have to talk to a professional. I'd advise you to talk to a professional.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, really, all the old permit, they're all like inches off from each other from house to house. I mean, it's really, it seems like they're all the same, but they're not. And let me see. Two more questions I think we have time for. One is, does this change taxes if you add a second story? Do you have to pay more taxes, I think is the question.
Yeah, I am not the person to answer that question as the architect. I mean, I think that theoretically, yes, it will raise your taxes, but I'm not actually sure how much.
Yeah, I think so as well. But okay, and then just because we were talking about this a little bit, and I know it's on a lot of people's minds, construction supplies have gone up after the pandemic. Can you estimate a % increase or what that means?
I am seeing that across the board right now with all of my residential projects, that pricing is coming in really high. We're seeing the cost of commodities, not just lumber or wood, but steel, wiring for electrical, everything is sort of shot through the roof. So yes, we're seeing higher than usual prices right now. I expect that that should level out at some point, probably in the fall going into the winter. But I mean, an estimate of how much, that's a better question actually for a contractor than for me. But I can report that my clients are seeing higher pricing than they expected, and it's resulting in people either scaling back their projects or putting them on hold and waiting right now. It's a tough time. All contractors are busy. Everyone has been, I mean, everyone, I say everyone in air quotes, but a lot of people, as we know, during the pandemic have been working from home, have had their kids at home, going to school from home, and a lot of people have wanted to expand their living space. And so we've been really busy. We, meaning the industry, architects, contractors, everybody involved has been very busy. And on top of that, we've seen commodity pricing go up. So it's an unusually tough time right now in this moment for construction pricing. But that doesn't mean that you can't start planning your projects so that when prices do come down, you're ready to go, or get some initial opinions on pricing and cost from contractors.
Mhm. All right. Laura was kind enough to have all of her info up throughout this presentation as well. So throughout the Q&A as well. So, you know, if you do want to reach out, you know, and you have more questions for Laura, you know, just copy down her email address now, her phone number. We, again, have recorded this entire thing. So anyone who signed up for this, you're going to get an email from Angela. It's going to have, you know, a link to the presentation. You can always find it on our Facebook page as well. So tons of information. If you missed anything, I know a couple questions in there. There were, you know, sort of things that had been addressed. So because we had a limited amount of time, I figured you could just go back and watch now. It's even better than trying to cram it into the Q&A. So definitely do that. And Laura, thank you so much. This was really wonderful. It's always great to see good case studies too. So thank you. Thank you. We really appreciate it. And hopefully we'll do this again.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, the opportunity. Thank you.
All right. Good night, everybody.